Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Thursday morning to you all. I hope you guys are waking up and feeling good out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day and a great week out there so far. We got a few things to go over in this morning's video. We're going to go over the same information we've pretty much been talking about over the last few days, and that's just trying to figure out what's next. We know what's going to happen the rest of January, which is pretty much the next, 36, 48 hours. Last couple of days left in the month. Seems like every single January just lasts for about 4 months, but we're finally just about the end of it. So what's next as far as the weather in February? We're going to go over everything we know as the model's latched on to anything as far as a storm, a new air mass. We're going to speak on it all in this video. After we get done doing that, we will talk about today's weather. There is a severe weather risk for areas of the south today. Outside of that, not a whole lot going on. But we will speak on everything that is going on. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. The news is new news to me because I got a late start this morning as far as the airplane crash. That's awful stuff. It truly is, and we're certainly praying over the entire situation and everybody impacted by it. We're all in a way impacted by it because it definitely is very sad anytime something like that happens, but we're praying over the entire situation. I know a lot of people will, and we certainly should pray for those folks. They certainly will need it. It's just and I haven't read much into it, so I don't know all the details. I just saw it on my phone probably 30 to 45 minutes ago from this moment right now, so I definitely will take some time to read into what exactly happened, and just pretty awful stuff. So let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So this is the latest from the Climate Prediction Center. We've been starting every single video off by speaking on this. And if you notice low energy for me this morning, my kid is sick once again. The same child that had the flu last week is fighting a stomach virus now, so typically it doesn't get doubled up like that, but here we are. So I'll be staying home from work today watching her. It's definitely a lot more difficult for a teacher to take off a day of work on the fly, so I definitely am typically the one that has to take off, which is cool. So I'll be taking care of my little girl, so I'm definitely asking for prayers for her today, for her just to get better and just can get a good streak of healthy weeks out ahead of us. As we have not had to fight sickness much over the last, I would say, 6 or 7 months. So we've been blessed with that, but it's definitely hit our family pretty hard over the last 10 days. So enough with all that. Let's get rolling here. So latest from the Climate Prediction Center. This is the 4th through the 8th outlook. So this is getting several days into February now. And I mean, basically where you have the red and orange area, that's where the National Weather Service Climate Prediction Center is leaning towards above average temperatures. The highest confidence is where you have this red color here and here. That's a 60 to 80% chance, but it definitely drops in confidence as you get closer to the middle of the country. As you can tell, 40, 33, and just a shot at around average temperatures in the gray area. Then you're leaning towards below average temperatures in the cooler colors, the blues, and you get all the way to the dark blue, and then the purple. That's a 70 to 80% chance of temperatures being below normal. And then you look at the 8 to 14 day outlook, and confidence, kind of drops off a little bit in general, but it looks like the same areas look to be above average temperature wise. And the only area that I see that really changes a lot is the northeast, but the confidence isn't very high one way or the other with that either, but they are leaning towards that 33 to 40% chance of temperatures being above normal up here. And the southeast will continue to be above average temperature wise. There's a lot of people in the comments saying winter's over, this, that, and the other, and who knows, it might not be. I'm not going to sit here and say that you're wrong or right, especially when you compare it to what February has done lately. It seems like when we leave the month of January, for a lot of people in the south and the east, that winter is pretty much over. February, for whatever reason, thinks it's a spring month, and I would argue that March has been cooler than February lately. In fact, I was looking at my weather station data a few months back, and I believe it was either this past March and February or the March and February in 2023 where temperatures, I had more sub-freezing morning lows in March than I did in February. So, you know, I don't know what's up with February lately, but it does not like the winter at all. But below average temperatures in this, what is this? This is the 6th through the 12th. So, I mean, we're almost all the way through the half point of February in this outlook, leaning towards below average temperatures. And it looks like, you know, there's a decent shot of an active storm track for pretty much everybody for the first 10 to 12 days of February, leaning towards above average precipitation for most of the country. And this is just between the 8 to 14 day outlook, but it's not a whole lot different with the 6 to 10 day outlook. The only area that stays, and this doesn't mean you're not going to get any precipitation, but the only area that, you know, has the confidence in being below average as far as precipitation is Arizona, New Mexico, and the southern high plains, but definitely an active storm track. So as far as anything that we're watching out there, we're going to start these graphics off and these models off by starting off by Sunday morning. So this is February the 2nd, and we'll just progress this forward. This is the European, and we'll get in all the way until next Monday. We'll have this clipper that moves in the northeast, and then this kind of Arctic boundary begins to sag a little bit further south. So you see that 540 line right here? That's not exactly where the cold air is at the surface, but aloft. You know, there's a lot of cold air kind of, just think of this as a boundary between warmer air and colder air. So you continue to progress this forward. We're going to have a big storm system. This will be the second or third one at this point because there's one coming in over the next 24 hours across the western U.S., but we're going to have a big storm system that flies across the west. This will eventually kind of move into the central U.S., but what will be the structure of this system? Is this just going to be, you know, winter weather further north, further south? But, you know, we get into midway next week. This is like next Wednesday, so, I mean, this is about 6 days from now, so it's still in that medium range. Has a low pressure cutting across like Chicago, so, you know, that's going to be rain and just winter weather up here in the Great Lakes region, maybe a little bit in the northeast. And then this is just a big old cutter. So this, I mean, here it is, early February. We got a low pressure cutting over the Great Lakes. This would bring mainly rain for a lot of areas of the U.S. in this region, even the northeast, and snow up here in Canada. And then the Euro has a cold front kind of sweeping in a little bit further south. So with this cutter, it introduces maybe an avenue for cold air to get a little bit further south between that day 7 and 10 time frame, like the 6th into the 7th. And then we have a storm track that maybe gets a little bit further south. So the latest Euro, and this is still an unreliable time frame, over 200 hours out. This is like next weekend, has a winter storm moving across the Midwest into the Ohio Valley and eventually into the Northeast. Doesn't look like it has a ton of precipitation with it, but definitely a quick-hitting winter weather event, and all rain for the South. And then we start to get past that day 10 frame, right? That's kind of like no man's land. Latest operational Euro, and I just want to say that out loud, even louder, because I want to compare it to what the Euro Ensemble shows, which doesn't really support this. Shows a lot of cold air diving into the central and even eastern U.S., and all of a sudden, when you got cold air diving pretty far south, your jet comes south, and then your storm track shifts south. And suddenly you got moisture down here. And I mean, yes, that is snow in Georgia, South Carolina, and then all of a sudden eastern North Carolina, you have a quick shot of snow. But I want you to look. This is over 300 hours out, like the 11th, 12th of February. But it is interesting. The latest Euro does show cold air finally coming south, and at the very end of the run, you know, it looks like the ridge is building back again. So take that with a grain of salt as far as a cold air blast coming in after the 10th or the 9th or so. You know, I wouldn't buy it right now until we get some consistency, more importantly, on the ensemble guidance. Now, the GFS, what is it showing? GFS continues to like the idea of these little clippers riding into Canada, areas of the Northeast, so maybe some multiple little light to moderate snow events like you've been seeing this week across the Northeast. And then here's a little bit of snow across the high plains Monday morning into the 3rd, and then we get into the 4th. This is getting in the next Tuesday. Not a whole lot going on. Some energy out west. Then we get into Wednesday. And then GFS is continuing to like a winter storm breaking out across the Midwest into the Ohio Valley. And you got just overrunning events. So a lot of moisture getting pulled from the south out the Gulf, hitting this cold air. And we got this nasty icing scenario setting up on the GFS. And this would eventually bring a winter storm all the way into like New York City, almost into Boston. It's still a very warm system, meaning all your winter weather is mainly, I mean, I would say it's so warm that, Kentucky, it's actually raining. Southern West Virginia, it's raining. Tennessee, it's raining. Most of Arkansas. Winter weather is really just kind of just pushed up to the north. But you continue to go forward here, and we get about a week out from today, and it wants to show a decent winter storm for the Northeast. But I will tell you, if you compare that with the Euro in that same time frame, remember the Euro has, if you back it up here, the Euro has this low pressure way up here. So the Euro mainly keeps all your winter weather kind of up here. Okay, when the GFS wants to have it way down here, which is a pretty big difference mileage-wise. And the Canadian follows the Euro, actually. So I would say the GFS is a bit of an outlier with this southern scenario, and I don't know if I buy it right now. That's why, I'm not basing these thumbnails and headlines off a winter storm a week from today. I don't want to do that because I want to get some more agreement between model guidance. But you start to get between that day 7 and 10 time frame. Is there anything after that to watch? I would say no. I mean, there's a lot of just variety. And we get to day 8, day 9, day 10. So we're all the way into like next Saturday. Not this Saturday, next Saturday. And we do have cold air kind of coming down just like the Euro. So the operational GFS and the Euro show something similar with oppressive cold air finally making it down to the eastern U.S. How deep is it though? And, you get about all the way until like next Sunday morning, and we have a quick hitting snow event for Virginia. I don't know if that actually happens. Probably not, but who knows? And then you got another event after that, and we're starting to get closer to 300 hours out, the 10th, the 11th, the 12th. Just an unreliable time frame and just got a lot of energy. The only thing I want you to take from the long-range operational runs is the fact that there is a lot of energy flying around. Where's the cold air press going to be? It's a big question. So we can look at all these operational runs until the cows come home, but at the end of the day, we don't even know what's going to happen between like that day 5 to day 7 time frame because model guidance disagrees. If we're looking at the Euro ensemble, which I'll focus on more than the GFS ensemble, I always will favor that over that. But this is in 4-hour periods. Snowfall, as you can tell, it's mainly confined to kind of the U.S.-Canadian border, and maybe the UP of Michigan, the Northeast, and then the central and really the northern Rockies and the Pacific Northwest and the Cascades. We start to get a week out, and, the Euro ensemble does not really support much of any winter weather like where the GFS shows it, like mid to late next work week. Keeps the snow signal further north, but I will tell you there is an ice signal on the Euro ensemble that I don't have pulled up that is a little bit further south. So it does support some members that of what like the GFS is showing as far as the icy scenario. And this isn't me saying there ain't going to be a winter storm for Illinois, Indiana, Ohio next week, or Iowa. I'm just saying that models have not locked into that scenario. So we continue to get a lot of snow out west, as you can tell, the highlighted colors out here. And then what's interesting is once we get past day 7 into day 10, the snowfall mean or average begins to show up a little bit further south. So it tells me that, some members, not all of them, because remember the Euro ensemble makes up about 51 members, shows some colder scenarios, shows a pretty solid signal across the Northeast around early to mid-month. And, the snowfall average mean or footprint, if you will, begins to shift a little bit further south. So it tells me that, once we get a little bit deeper into the month of February, I think it will support a little bit more cold air south. But in the meantime, we are going to deal with a lot of ridging. So, the orange, the yellow, the red you see on your screen, it's a ridge of high pressure. Typically, you get warmer than average temperatures. The blues, the greens, that's lower pressure, a trough of low pressure. Normally, it brings cold air, some sort of storm system, and you can kind of gauge where the avenue or the storm track will be off that. So we started, let's just go all the way to about next Monday evening. All right, so this is the evening of the 3rd of February. And what you're noticing here is you got this pretty broad zonal ridge that's pretty much built over the majority of the lower 48. Now, this is going to keep your storm track going like this, flying across like that, and like that. Maybe those arrows are a little bit further south, not quite sure. So that's going to keep most of your winter weather pretty far south. And this ridge down here is going to pretty much not bake everybody, but it's going to keep everybody feeling like a touch of spring. You're going to get a lot of 60s and 70s in the south, a lot of 50s in the middle of the country, and just above average temperatures of what you're used to for this time of the year. So you keep this going, and most model guidance now is liking the idea of this ridge really shifting to the east. So now you got this ridge sort of build up over this area. It's really flexing over the entire central and eastern U.S. Storm track might shift to something like that. So all of a sudden you start to get to some cutters now going across the middle of the country, and this storm track could be more so like this. Therefore, I mean, I think that your pattern is going to stop supporting as much winter weather for the Northeast, at least for a time period. And I mean, that time period might be a few days, but you continue to keep this going. We get past the 1 week time frame, and then it could start to support winter weather once again for the Northeast. So you notice this big area in blue, which I will tell you is a pretty nice cold source. I mean, its origins is from the Arctic. It was an ugly arrow at first. Origins are from the Arctic. You're getting this cross-polar flow. It's just not digging deep. So storm track's kind of going like this at this point. Okay. Cold, nice cold air source coming down. And there's some sort of boundary, like temperature gradient right into here. And you got cold air coming down here, getting introduced into the northern plains and the Rockies. And how far does this cold air kind of penetrate down here? You still got ridging showing up right down here, which will keep you to around average or slightly above average temperatures, and you keep going. And one thing I do notice is right around day 10 or day 11, you kind of have this nudge of the trough that does like this. So, you know, storm track kind of going like this, maybe. So cold air kind of coming down. And I think that's why the operational runs are kind of showing that brief period around day 10 to day 12. Showing some flashes of some winter weather a little bit far south. Like, I mean, heck, the Euro and the GFS kind of show winter weather pretty far south in this little brief time period. But it doesn't last long, as it looks like the trough, and this isn't a forecast, drops once again out west, and once again we're dealing with a big cold air press kind of going like this, and another ridge flexing across the eastern U.S. So I still think we're getting a lot of back and forth. I really do. And, you know, if we're looking at temperatures in response to the ridge placement and the trough placement, you know, this is above average temperatures, and the warmer looking colors, and below average temperatures in the colder colors like the purples, the blues, and the greens. I'm sure everybody's opinion on what colder colors look like is different, but you get what I'm saying. But what's wild to me is the contrast here. You know, you got well above average temperatures here, right, as we're getting in the middle of next week, and then well below average temperatures up here. There's just going to be what I think is going to be there is just like this boundary that's just going to be kind of bobbing and weaving back and forth north to south. And there it is. You can see how it warms up big time across the eastern U.S. at the end of next work week. And then everybody kind of cools down around that day 10 mark. That little brief trough maybe digs the cold front, cools everybody back down for a period. And I mean, heck, this is like, for example, this is like around the 10th to 11th. It looks like the majority of the country is below average temperature wise. But, you know, how exactly does that work? And then at the very end of the run, you know, it does show just the same area staying cold. It just looks like you folks in the northern Rockies are just locked into a pretty cold pattern. So we'll continue to try to figure that one out, guys, and we're going to continue just to reevaluate the information every single morning. So as far as what's happening right now, we have flash flood warnings ongoing right now around the Dallas-Fort Worth area. A lot of range training over the same areas as this system is just slowly making its way across areas of the country. It's cut off. As soon as it latches onto that jet, it will pick up some steam here, but we have some snow getting thrown back into Colorado, and just a whole lot of rain. No severe weather alerts right now, but watches, warnings, and advisories. There is those flash flood warnings. We got winter weather advisories that will expire tomorrow for a little bit of see what it talks about here. So a little bit of freezing rain, that's what I thought. So a little bit of freezing rain is possible in areas of PA, New York, and even western Mass and Connecticut tomorrow, northern New Jersey. And then we do have a lot of winter weather alerts across the Rockies for what's to come. And this is for multiple winter storms, it looks like. So winter storm watches in the Cascades, winter weather advisories. We got winter storm warnings up for the pink areas. And then we do have some winter weather advisories up for areas of Colorado, winter storm warnings for northern New Mexico for what's to come. I'm sorry, not for what's to come, but for what's happening right now. Severe weather, we do have a slight risk. There's been no changes to this. Level 2 out of 5 risk. So this includes southeast areas of Texas, a good chunk of Louisiana here, all the way into Vicksburg, Mississippi. Level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather. You ask, what is driving this? The tornado risk is legit today, guys. In this brown region, that's where we have a 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location. The green area, I'll zoom out a little bit, that's a 2% risk. And then the hail threat today, just a 5% risk of hail. And then the wind threat, there is a 15% risk in this yellow area of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour within 25 miles in a given location. So we'll talk a little bit more of that here in a second. But the southeast today, here comes the moisture. The majority of the southeast will stay dry ahead of this system, but rain will begin to move into western Tennessee, western Kentucky, take over most of the state of Kentucky by this evening. We'll have this little finger right here of kind of moisture that'll slide across northwest North Carolina into western Virginia, eventually into Virginia, and then that'll clear, and then we'll get a lot of warm, moist air for, I would say, for January standards. They'll surge into the southeast ahead of this line of storms. They could definitely pack a punch overnight. I don't think it's anything to be freaked out about overnight or anything like that, but certainly watching them. And then we'll wake up tomorrow morning, and rain will be greeting a lot of us here in Mississippi. I would say Alabama, northern Georgia, and eastern Tennessee. So the northeast today, quiet day of weather, at least for the first half of the day. We're going to get some snow that could drift into the northern Adirondacks, the northern sections of Vermont and New Hampshire, all the way into Maine later on tonight into the wee hours of the morning. So we'll get a little bit of light snowfall accumulation. Then we're waking up tomorrow morning to some freezing rain in areas of New York and northeastern PA, maybe even northern New Jersey, western Mass, western Connecticut. You see them splotches of pink, and I do think this will eventually change to just good old-fashioned rain. But once upon a time, this was certainly showing a more significant winter weather event, but it definitely trended the other way, and the majority of this is rain as we're getting into tomorrow. But the south-central U.S., just a lot of rain will continue for most of the state of Arkansas. This will get all the way into southeastern Missouri, into southern Illinois. Heavy rain in the Boot Hill, Missouri this afternoon, and into southern Illinois, western Kentucky. And then we have to watch these storms later on this afternoon, this evening, for Louisiana and eventually getting into Mississippi. And then we'll have this gnarly little cutoff low that will be spinning, just doing its thing, dancing around across northern Missouri, areas of Kansas later on tonight into tomorrow morning. But just a closer look at folks here in Louisiana. You know, historic snowstorms several days ago. Now we're getting a threat of severe weather, but this is around 12. This is 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m. So about 6 p.m. tonight, we do have these thunderstorms moving across Louisiana into western Mississippi. They could produce a tornado. Some gusty winds. Please take these serious. By the time you get into midnight tonight, they'll start to lose their kind of forward momentum and start to tilt as low pressure cuts to the north. And you're definitely going to get some thunderstorms in the middle of the night. I mean, maybe all the way up to Meridian, Jackson, down to Baton Rouge. Definitely could get some strong to severe thunderstorms. And the updraft Felicity swath with these storms not picking up on much. So hopefully this doesn't materialize into anything and we don't have anything to worry about by the time we're waking up tomorrow morning. The north central U.S., some snow drifting around the UP of Michigan. That'll move on out this afternoon. Into this evening, some rain will move all the way up into Chicago, and then we'll have just this sort of this upper low kind of spinning around down here in the Midwest. This will bring some rain. Who knows? Maybe some wet snow mixes with this. Very possible. Some wild things sometimes can happen with this upper low. Let's see what the temperatures look like in this. Yeah, pretty warm upper low. But I wouldn't be surprised if somehow some wet flakes of snow mix with this rain tomorrow morning in areas of Missouri, Illinois, and southeastern Iowa. So, and then out west, just some snow spinning around in Colorado today. Not a big deal at all. And then a big system will emerge into the Pacific coastline, and we'll get a lot of heavy rain for the valleys and the coastal range, and maybe eventually get enough cold air to switch some of these areas in the coastal range right here to snow. But the Cascades will get very heavy snow by the time we're getting into tomorrow afternoon. You're certainly just getting a lot of heavy snow in those higher elevations. And we'll take this all the way into tomorrow night, and you can see a lot more cold air works in. So some of these snow levels begin to drop for certain areas. You start to see more blue on your map, and then it turns into more of a convective feed. That happens a lot. You know, you'll get this big plume of moisture moving to the Pacific Northwest. After the big plume of moisture moves in, more of just of a convective in nature kind of feed of moisture. But snowfall between now and Sunday morning, a lot will add up in those higher elevations, a lot. And then the Rockies, this is what it's looking like here. So you're definitely going to start to make up for lost time. Hasn't been much of a winter out here. We'll start to add up those snowfall totals over the next few weeks. And then temperatures, warm in the southeast ahead of this system, 60s, 70s, hit 71 degrees in my house yesterday. Pretty wild, but not unusual at all for January, for any time of the year. Florida, warming on up. You're still locked into the tundra up here in New England. Very, very cold. But everybody else is warming up. Look how the ridge has spiked all the way up here. We're going to get some 50s, folks. All the way up into Minnesota and South Dakota and Wisconsin today. And then it's pretty much, I would say, warmer than average everywhere out west. So that's all I got. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all. And hopefully we'll get another Bible verse, another devotion here in the next day or so. Appreciate the feedback on that. And we'll definitely make that a routine thing here in the coming days and weeks. So God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful day. We'll talk to you tomorrow morning.